Hey guys, I want to talk about something today that has popped up a lot, and we've been hearing this word empower for a long time. People say, "Oh, I want to empower my team," or people may say, "I want to be empowered to do whatever." Chuck all that out. Don't empower anybody. Right? Stop empowering people right now. You're probably thinking I just bumped my head, or just took something, or have gone off the deep end. Here's what I mean. Let's talk about this. If you have team members who are waiting to be empowered, what's the problem with that? What's the verb in there? They're waiting. Holy shit. If someone's waiting to be empowered, then they're not taking action because they don't feel like they have the authority or whatever else it is. That means that they're literally sitting still, or they're moving at very, very low levels of speed to get something done. That's a huge progress. That's a huge problem. So when we look at this through the lens of initiative and ownership and creativity, you got team members who are waiting to be able to use those things. That's costing them, that's costing you as the manager, and that's definitely going to be costing the business, both on the short term and on the long term. You in the business probably expect people to be in a mode of doing, being proactive, making recommendations, initiating, proposing, suggesting, going on the offense. When I was in the Army, when I was a second lieutenant, when I was at West Point, we were taught to take the initiative. We were taught to just do things. We were taught to pick up the ball and run with it. That's the same thing you want to teach your team members. So how do you do that? So glad we have this. So if we're not going to empower people, what do we do? Well, first thing is, as a manager, start on day one. Absolutely right out of the gate. Start on day one by saying to team members, hey, I'm expecting you. Part of your role includes you will be making recommendations, et cetera, et cetera. So you're setting this as an expectation, as a core expectation, right on the very, very first day. What's fantastic about this is you're letting them know that this is a part of their job. So if their job includes X, Y, and Z, making recommendations, making suggestions that incorporate parts X, Y, and Z, that are on the edges of parts X, Y, or Z, that's what's expected. Now, if they want to talk about something that's well out of their lane, you get to decide how much of that to let them run with, or say, hey, that's great, not now, or we're going to talk about that later, or hey, let's focus on this other area. So there are ways to corral this in so it's productive. You are counting on team members, though, to make recommendations, to speak up when they see a problem, to identify tweaks and ways to improve plans. And you can suggest, you can give them ways to do this so that it comes across in a constructive, professional manner. So it's not this thing sucks or that guy's a jerk. It's, hey, here's the problem with how this is going to work, or this is what has been happening that's going to be important to change in this interaction between our team and this other team. So it's really specific and it's really actionable. As you work with team members and as you help team members become clear on what that expectation is for them to go on the offense, for them to make recommendations, you can include some very important things that will help put it into framework for that team member. How come they're expected to provide this? One is a certain position. So if someone is a senior engineer or they're a lead designer, that's a position that indicates that they've got more experience. So that's going to be really important. Number two is if they've got a specialization, they've got a particular degree or some other certification, that's something else that demonstrates that they've got that skill and ability. The third thing to do is to remind them of the time that they have working in that job or working in that industry or working in that kind of a specialty. So often when we work with leaders, we'll remind them that, hey, I'll say, how long has so-and-so been in this job? Oh, 20 years. I'm like, that's a great thing to remind that person. So to remind Susie, you've been in this job for 20 years. Part of your role includes using that experience to make recommendations. That's part of how you're going to contribute to this team, to this project, and to helping the business continue to move. So as you have that initial conversation with team members and you say, okay, here's what's expected, that's awesome. That's a great first step. What's also going to be essential is continuing to reinforce that. So anytime you get together with a team to solve a problem, anytime a team member comes to you and says, hey, I've got this thing, I've got this situation, this is where you can continue to bring that up and say, well, what do you recommend? What do you see as the key parts of this? How would you solve this? So now what you're doing is you're not only setting that initial expectation of them bringing ideas, them having suggestions, them having a plan, you're also reinforcing that on a daily basis. Because if you say it the first time and then you never do anything with it afterwards, that's a problem. People are going to know that and say, well, he didn't really mean it, or she said that, and that's not really the case because look at what she's doing. So continuing to reinforce that on an ongoing basis will be absolutely essential to team members going, oh yeah, they said it and they really, really meant it. With this, it's also going to be important to remind team members of three things. First, not all suggestions, ideas, recommendations are going to be acted on. That's just not going to happen. There's no business that happens where there's no business on the earth where they take every single idea from team members, even if they're really fantastic, and implement every single one of them. There's cost, there's people, there's time issues that sometimes just don't allow that to happen. And so leaders will make a decision on we're going to go with this plan or with that plan. So not every good idea is going to be acted on at that time. And that can be an important thing to bring in, is that maybe it makes sense later and we'll act on it then. Number two, even if those ideas aren't acted on, it doesn't mean that team members are excused from continuing to bring ideas, continuing to make recommendations, continuing to be on the offense. So if a team member says, well, I made a suggestion last week and you guys didn't take it. Sure, yes, that's true. And your job is still to make recommendations, point out problems we're going to have, etc. So even if some ideas aren't accepted, doesn't mean that the team member doesn't have the responsibility to continue to show up and generate those. The third part of this that's really important is there are going to be times when you as a manager perhaps will direct activity. Hey, please do this, please do that, please don't do this thing. And you're not going to be open to conversations. You're not going to, for whatever set of reasons, you're not going to encourage a conversation about this. Now, you as a manager will also want to be sure to set good parameters so that if you say do X and you're not really having it be open to conversation and a team member really sees a giant problem, you're going to want to know how to encourage that conversation to still happen. If someone says, well, I kind of don't like this part of the plan or that part of the plan, or maybe we could do this thing differently, and it's not up for conversation, be really clear that these parts of the plan are not up for discussion. These are not up for debate. This is exactly what we're going to do, and please move out on it by this date and time. That way you're providing really clear guidance on what's open for discussion and what isn't open for discussion. So I wanted to toss out this video today about empowering, because it is something that's been coming up and it's something that is really holding a lot of organizations back, and it really indicates that team members, most importantly, team members are thinking in a way where they don't see themselves as being able to go on the offense. They're waiting, they're in react mode, they're waiting to be touched with a magic wand of go forth and present your ideas, when probably leaders at all levels expect that right from the beginning. So good luck with this. Post some comments on what's working or not working with this, and look forward to seeing you guys soon.